Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin bubble news channel. People don't seem to be able to picture this next cycle and what's going on well enough. I also think this is the end of this big picture economic order. People say I said 250,000 to 1 million. That's where I stand. The range is pretty big, but you want me to put a price on something using a piece of paper that, as you said, lawmakers who don't even understand how the system works are breaking down. I don't think it's important that it gets to 250,000. In the next 18 months, I think it's possible to reach 1 million. Given how much they'll have to debase the money to keep the system running and save the bond market, I think 1 million is a fair amount. The CEO of Strike, Jack Mallers, is one of the youngest thinkers in the Bitcoin space. He thinks that the world's biggest cryptocurrency by market cap will be worth between $250,000 and $1 million before the bull market ends in 2025. Mallers recently talked with Daniela Cambone on the ITM Trading YouTube channel and said that Bitcoin prices could go as high as $1 million per coin once central banks start printing more money and taking other steps to ease the economy. Mallers says that the bond market is about to go through a very bad crisis. He thinks that the Federal Reserve will have to step in to stop a crash that could bring down the whole financial system. He uses the Argentine peso, the Egyptian pound, the Nigerian naira, and the Japanese yen as examples of currencies that are having a hard time. These currencies have lost a lot of value in the last few years. According to a story on Nasdaq.com, Jack had said before that he thought the next round of quantitative easing QE could be 3 times bigger than the measures used during the pandemic, which came close to $113 trillion by mid-2021. In comparison, this cost is higher than what the US spent on its 13 most expensive wars put together. It is believed that more than $4.7 trillion was spent on World War II, which is more than the $5.2 trillion that was spent on the pandemic on things like unemployment, personal relief checks, and vaccines. If Jack's guess comes true and the Fed and other central banks print even more money, asset prices could go through the roof and paper currencies could lose even more value. This is likely why Jack said earlier this year that he was leaving the US, dollar and other foreign currencies, and putting all of his money into Bitcoin. The latter has lost more than 9% of its value in the last 100 years, but Bitcoin's value has grown by leaps and bounds and is still the best performing product in the world since it was created. I think we're in a really strange situation right now because they've been raised faster than ever before, and they haven't given up. It's now the Fed's turn to scare the markets and say rates will stay higher for longer, even though I don't think it matters. Clearly, it leads to inflation. When you compare one year to the next, the stock market, gold, the real estate index, and Bitcoin all have double-digit gains. In this case, it's still clearly stimulating. It is still clearly inflationary. Interest rates are the cost of money, and I think they can be hard to understand. What about the amount of money, though? They're still interesting. They're still making money. That's why I don't think what the Fed does matters. All of it is stimulating. And the truth is that world debt to GDP is my favorite metric because it tells the story so clearly. The way I see it, money is just our time and energy in a more general form. Our time and energy are something we can buy or sell on the market. The ratio of global debt to GDP tells me that governments around the world have taken a huge amount of our time and energy without any growth to repay the debt. Someone has to feel that loss somewhere. Where are you going to feel that loss? They can do 2 things. They aren't going to pay back the people who gave them money or time. Who are those people? People who own bonds. All of the world's money and banks are there. People will lose value, and they will have to spend time and energy on something else. That's what we mean by inflation. What the Fed does doesn't really matter to me. Higher for longer. We're going to cut. All of it is dangerous nonsense. All of this is very diverting. The truth is that someone has to face a loss somewhere. All of the banks will have to fail, and the bond market and the market for government debt will both essentially disappear. They'll either debase the currency and inflate their way out, which are both just ways for them to take time and energy away from the people to fix what was a huge mistake in the government and paper currency. Which of the 2 do you think is more likely to happen? Tell me. Really, come on, if they wanted to. Listen, if I were ruler of the United States and could do whatever I wanted, I would cause the banks to fail. We're going back to 2008, you see. There was no reason for them to let the banks fail. The world learned in 2008 to 2009 that they don't care about the value of the dollar, which is why de-dollarization began. It seems like they don't care about the owners of this dollar network because they help those guys out. There really isn't an easy way out. The other way is that you need to insult the time and energy of everyone who drives to work every day. Take a look at it. When do people decide to get married? Why aren't as many people having kids? Why aren't as many people having homes? It takes more time and work to get the standard of life we want because they're taking away our money. In order to make themselves whole on the balance sheet, on the world debt to GDP ratio, they're putting down the time and energy that we put into the universe. To put it another way, I think they're going to debase the currency. By the way, we both agree that they can't touch Bitcoin or gold. They can't put these down. I think it's a way to protect your time and energy, which is why these investments probably do very well. I believe this is a great example of why we use money in society. Once more, money got rid of the idea of bartering. We don't have to trade our jobs for someone else's, so we can be very focused on our own. They can be traded for money, which can then be used in a market. That is what made it possible for billions of people to join the economy, for the economy to become digital, and for the economy to appear on the internet. What we give our time and energy to can't be managed by a group in one place. People in power, like lawmakers and the government, will abuse it. I think what we've seen is abuse that has been going on for decades and decades, and the people who are meant to make decisions don't even know how it works. For me, it was a very clear example. I mean, all the way in there, right? Also, I agree with him the US government can't go bankrupt. That seems like it's true, which is the stance they've always had. They are going to print money, which is another way of saying they are going to debase that, right? People who have to go to work will have to give them their time and energy instead. In order to pay for what they're doing, people who have to work every day will get less food, less gas, less cars, less family, and less time to live, right? And the only other way is for them to let the bond market crash and start over with everything. He's right, even if he doesn't know it. Unfortunately, he seems to have no idea what he's talking about, but I don't think either of us is surprised by that. People don't seem to be able to picture this next cycle and what's going on well enough. I also think we're coming to the end of this big picture economic order. In reality, this is after WWII. Also, you have this American power that we've been trying to keep and protect for a long time. I'm American. It looks like we might be seeing the end of that. Now let's look at the dollar and the yen. We just opened a swap line with Japan, right? I mean, Nigeria and Turkey have both had currency crises. It's happening now in Japan. China will have to lower the value of its currency soon. With that in mind, I think it's clear that there is a loss to be felt. What do I think about the idea that the US will go bankrupt and JP Morgan and all of their other financial companies will fail? By the way, that's what we're seeing in Argentina. It's not simple. I don't think any leader is going to stand up and say, I'm going to take away your healthcare, not Trump, not Biden, not RFK. I'm going to take everything around you and make it bigger. I'm going to break everything you know. All of your money in the bank is gone. The United States needs to go through the Great Depression for its own good. I thought that was not what leaders do. I think officials will say, this is a bunch of crap, and this is why you should vote for me. They will also have to make up the difference in this shortfall. I also think it's possible to think. People say I said 250,000 to 1 million. That's where I stand. The range is pretty big, but you want me to put a price on something using a piece of paper that, as you said, politicians who don't even understand how